Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome to another edition of Talmbout Rasslin, right here on the Black Phoenix Network. I'm your host, the untouchable J.R. Atkins, and this is your primary destination for wrestling conversation. And ladies and gentlemen, it is 2026. We are here to bring you more of that content that you love. We're here to talk about wrestling. That's it. First of all, I want to thank everybody for following me into the new year as we embark on this journey to reach our goal. We are growing in 2026. That is the goal. And as I always say, make sure you like, share, subscribe. Make sure you hit the notify button. Make sure you leave a rating, review, comment. Engage is the key, because that's the only way we're going to grow and hit these goals. And once we hit these goals, hey, look, I'm gonna make it good for you. Okay, I'm gonna make it good for you. Whether it needs to be some more content, some private content, I'm gonna know we're gonna make it work for you. Okay, we're gonna make it work for you. But once again, thank you for tuning in to the Black Phoenix Network. Thank you for tuning in to Talking About Wrestling. Again, I am your host, the untouchable J.R. Atkins, your primary destination for wrestling conversation. How was your New Year's? Tell me in the comments. I want to know, how was your New Year's Eve? How did it go? Mine was actually pretty good. I had some plans. Kind of fell through. Kind of had to figure it out on the fly. Didn't do too much, but it felt like I had an amazing, lengthy night. So there's that. But I want to hear from you. How was your New Year's Eve? We're going to talk about it because my New Year's Eve, like I'm pretty sure a lot of you, consisted of one thing before I went and got the festivities started. And boy, oh boy, right? But we're not going to start there. We're going to get there because, of course, we got to talk about World's End, and we got to talk about Dynamite. One thing in particular about Dynamite, because I didn't see it coming. But before we did that done, I know the thing that you're waiting on. I know what you want. And as Caliber always says, you got to give the people what they want. It's time for the shirt of the day. You ready? Here we go. What? 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 Little Stone Cold DTA action this morning. Truthfully, this is actually my second time owning this shirt. I remember, because I tried to give a story or some background. So one of the wrestling shirts I had, this shirt came out, I want to say maybe 97, 98-ish, still in school. I remember getting this shirt and wearing it to Liberty Land, which was our amusement park here in Memphis. It's not open anymore, of course, because we can't have nice things. But I remember there was the day that everybody, schools all across the city, would go to Liberty Land. And it was always cool because you never know who you're going to run into, because everybody's school's going pretty much, right? So it's full of kids from all over the city. So, and I just remember having this shirt and so excited to wear it to Liberty Land that day. So I always stuck out. One of my favorite Stone Cold shirts actually ever. I don't know why that is. So of course, when I had the opportunity to get it again, of course I did, because that's what we do as adults. We buy the things from our childhood that we either couldn't have or we don't have anymore and want again. So that's how we got here. So that's the story behind today's shirt of the day. What do you guys think? I don't think that live, so let's leave it like that for now. Let's see how that works this week. So we are here. I gotta make this quick because I got some things going on that I might need to make sure we get in and out, bing, bang, boom, right? So let's start with World's End. That show was, normally I come in here and say this show was amazing. It actually was a really, 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 really good pay-per-view. Long as always, but they're always long. I don't even think that's valid. I mean, it can be valid, for your uh, critiques that the shows are too long, but at this point, you should be used to it. Tony's gonna give you all the bang for your buck that you can stand, and you know, uh, I for one thank him greatly for that. So, but World's End was an amazing show. World's End was a good show. It was a really good show. Um, my predictions, as usual, were like 50-50. Not even 50-50. I actually nailed everything but the C2. And it was funny because it was like immediately. My as they say, my bracket was busted immediately. So, you know, go figure. But a great show nonetheless. A lot of twists and turns. And then the dynamite that followed really didn't see that coming, but a hell of a way to end the year. So let's get into it. We're gonna run through this, all right? There's some things to talk about, and then we're gonna run through it because again, I might be on a time crunch. Who knows? So we're gonna start off with the pre-show. I actually did not get a chance to see the pre-show. I had a prior engagement that I was trying to stay at as long as possible. So a lot of the pre-show stuff I actually did not see. Actually, none of the pre. I think I saw like the end of the quote unquote main event of the pre-show. But starting out, you had the Sisters of Sin, of course, Julia Hart, Sky Blue taking on Hyon and Maya World. It was all, of course, they won. I did predict that one, and of course, got it right. Apparently, afterwards, it was announced that Hyon and Maya World are all elite. They got their all elite graphic. They have signed to AEW, and you know, just I talked about it. I talked about it last week. I've talked about it before. We know what happened, and we see what happens if you know what happens. So go figure. Next up, we had Eddie Kingston, of course, defeating Zach Gibson of the Grizzled Young Vets. Why aren't the Grizzled Young Vets in the tag team division on the main on AEW proper? Not really sure. Not really sure because why are we not I mean, whatever. Don't understand that one, but whatever, right? Next, we had Mascara Dorada and Bandito versus the Don Callis family, Mark Davis and Rocky Romero. I actually feel like I saw some of this, so maybe I just turned it on for a brief minute. That may be what it is. I might have just turned it on for a minute and then saw some of it because I recall seeing some of this. I think Jet Speed and Jurassic Express defeated Josh Alexander and the Demand. I definitely saw the end of that. But I was home in time to catch the entirety of the main show. And immediately they came out the gate with one of the matches that this tournament was built around, actually. Tony has a way of doing things. I'll get into it. So we started out with Okada versus Takeshita. Which we figured could have been a final, but it wasn't. So like, oh, well, okay. Tony has this way. Tony Khan way of booking seems to be this way that he'll do the match. So this is, I guess, like a difference in his booking versus like a WWE, because WWE wants to give you the moment. They want to give you the moment that these two touch, the match happens, and they're finally face to face for the first time. All the build up, all the when it's something like this big or with something that seems this big, like they want to hold off for the moment that it finally comes together in the ring. Tony doesn't always do that. Tony does a lot of times. He'll do the match, like either somewhere random or somewhere, something, in order to build more for the big match. And he's not really about the moment that way. I guess I understand that. I get it. It's a way to book, but sometimes it's kind of like, oh man, I kind of want to wait. Sometimes you kind of want the moment, and I know, as AEW fans, we're about the grabs, but sometimes you do want the moments, you know. And I think that it's a thing that you hear a lot. It's like, I would have paid to see this like at like an all in or like a somewhere like that. So or at least in a big spotlight, not just as part of a tournament for like with some stakes and some weight. Now the way this match went, I think there's still that, but then so much has happened from I well let's just so again, the match was great. It did feel like again, it felt like one of those kind of setup matches for the bigger match down the line. Um, so again, Tony does that a lot actually. Give us like that setup match. The problem is sometimes you give us the setup match and you don't give us the actual match. That's the barn burner. But this match was really good. Takeshita didn't win. Okada goes, gets a screwdriver out of the turnbuckle, the Don Callis staple, hits Takeshita with it, wins. My bracket is officially busted. Almost, because it's officially busted because I figured Takeshita won the whole thing. Takeshita's not going to the next round, so now it's busted. Right. Kind of a strange finish. I didn't hate it, but it was like, oh, that happened. And again, I think that does build us to the eventual Okada Takeshita big match that I hoped we would get. Um, Next, we had Jon Moxley versus Kyle Fletcher, which a lot of people are saying was match of the night. Had some sick bumps that caused a lot of backlash throughout the wrestling community this week. A lot of people with something to say, but really was a great match. Did not fall asleep this time. Really great match. Kyle Fletcher belongs, and I figured that Kyle Fletcher was beating Moxley here because that was my bracket, right? And we're gonna get Kyle Fletcher to catch in the finals. Nope, not what happened. Moxley defeats Kyle Fletcher, and if it was busted before, it's eradicated at this point. Because Okada Moxley in the finals, not the complete opposite. I said to catch the Kyle Fletcher, complete opposite. So my picks were ruined from that moment forth. Go figure, right? So next up we had FTR versus the Bang Bang Gang. Again, in the Chicago Street Fight for the World Tag Team Championships. Another good match, another really good match. You know, the crowd coming down. That Mox Fletcher match was balls. Was hey, and so you did feel like the crowd kind of had to kind of get back up for FTR versus Bang Bang Gang. And I mean, it was a street fight. It wasn't super violent, but it was FTR doing what FTR does. And like I said, and like I said before, that it wouldn't be questionable at all. They were just gonna beat their ass. That's what happened. It's a good match, but the outcome was never in question. So I think next up we have Babes of Wrath, Harley and Willow defeated Mercedes Moné and Athena by pinfall. And like I said, Willow, I don't know if I said Willow would do it, but I definitely said Mercedes was going to take the pin. And she did. Clean as a sheep. It wasn't even like she rolled her up it wasn't like a schoolboy or nothing, but she rolled her up for the win. That plays into something that happens later. And I guess I'll cover this now. We have Mercedes. Again, the downfall is in full swing. Having a breakdown in the back. And out of that breakdown, she challenges Willow to a TBS title match on Dynamite, New Year's Smash. More on that later. Next up, we had Darby Allin versus Gabe Kidd. This was just kind of brutal. Like Darby was bleeding within like the first 5 minutes, and it was bloody. And Gabe Kidd at some point was bleeding, and it was bloody. And this was not like a hardcore match of any sense. It just was they just beat the shit out of each other, um, which was wild. It was a wild match. It was definitely a wild match. Um, Darby picked up the win, much needed win. He hadn't really been on the winning track um, since he returned at All In, but hopefully we're getting back on track. 2026 is going to be an interesting year. Next up, the Mixed Nuts Mayhem, Tony Storm, Roddy Strong, and the conglomeration, Mark Briscoe and Orange Cassidy, taking on the Death Riders. It's Claudio, Daniel Garcia, Willie Yuta, and Marina Shafir. Of course, the Team Conglomerate won. This was actually a lot more interesting than I anticipated. Again, if you know, I love a good clusterfuck, for lack of a better way to put it. This wasn't entirely that, but it was definitely very entertaining. There was a lot of interesting bits between Tony Storm and Orange Cassidy that you didn't see coming. And it's this weird thing happening. And some of the fallout from that, I don't know if it's fallout or if it was just kind of a quirky thing of Mina getting a little jealous of one Sir Orange Cassidy. Could anything be happening there? Let's see. I don't know. Could be interesting. Something that I did not think about until the moment it happened in the ring is Roddy Strong and Marina Shafir on opposite sides of each other in the match together. And they definitely played up on that within there's so much tension. And they don't AEW isn't heavy on the intergender wrestling necessarily. They'll do moments here and there and they play it up the way that it's supposed to be played up. So when somebody actually does something, it's not like I don't want to say they're not equal, but it's not presented in the way that well, these women just kick these dudes' ass all the time. And that's just what it is. And it's no big deal. So because it's not presented that way, when it happens, it has a little more gravitas and it has a little more meaning, a little more pop. So when the women do something to one of the men, it's like, oh, or when the men do something to one of the women, it's like, oh, you have those moments. So they play up. So in these environments, they play that up really well. As what like Claudio gave Tony the swing, right? There was a lot of moments like that within this match, and then we get these moments between Marina and Roddy, and Marina has been lighting because usually the way that goes, they will let the women get more off on the men, and they'll kind of hold off like bigger spots of the men doing something to the women for the big ooh moment, So Marina's lighting Roddy up the entire night. No hesitation, chops, kicks, whatever, right? So it comes down. They're like face to face. They have this moment, and she like kicked him or something, or chopped him, something. Maybe she even slapped him, and turned her back. And the way he chopped her in the back, and there's this weird thing. I said, it has to be very interesting to be like a wrestling couple in the same company on and it's not acknowledged like that. So you can play with it and if you don't know, it's just an interesting thing. But if you do know, it's that extra layer of oh, okay, how you gonna do, So I saw people online that were kind of like, well, why was everybody chanting like holy shit? When what's the big deal between Marina? And it's like, if you know, right? So it has to be kind of fun and funny to kind of say, hey, so I'm gonna chop you in the back. Like, okay, we're gonna do the thing. You gonna be good? Because you're wrestling, you're wrestlers. So of course you beat up on each other. And some, you would think, especially somebody like Marina and like Roddy. So I always find wrestling couples fascinating, especially in this kind of space, to see how that works, right? And it's always weird thinking how many couples are just kind of in, it it seems a lot more public with social media and everything being the way it is. It's a lot more public than it used to be. But it's just wild to see. Like you got Juice and Tony, which seems crazy. You got like I said, Marina and Roddy. You got Mox and Renee, which is always funny because Mox in C2, Renee's reporting to C2, and he has to talk about Mox like he's not, like she didn't just have this conversation at the house with him, kind of thing. So that's always funny to me how they handle these types of things and play with that without it being overt. Because these people who are like married, everybody knows they're married a lot of times, but we have to like not play into it on thing. Like again, if you don't know, you don't know, which is always fun. So, but again, a fun match, and they did basically a rematch on Dynamite for some reason without Mark without Mark Briscoe. So it was Tony Storm, Roddy, and Orange versus Claudio Garcia and Marina. So they took out Wheeler and they took out Mark Briscoe for the rematch on Dynamite for some reason, which the Death Riders won on Dynamite, of course. Moving on. We got through this one quick. Told you. Moving on, we have the women's world title match. Chris Statlander versus Jamie Hayter beat the dog poopy out of each other. Like they gave it to each other. I am loving Stat's reign as women's champion. I absolutely feel like she is kind of coming to her own. And I don't know. And I thought that she had kind of done that before, but seeing it now feels like, yo, we're seeing like it's a real deal now. For her to kind of win as a shock, kind of the way she seemed, then kind of the way she did, that for her to then come into her own as champion, grow into who this version of Stat is. And so much of it is, over the years, a lot of these people that she's facing are people that she actually lost to. And there's this thing of now, like, hey, I'm not the same person. And it's this thing of like, now you level up. Once it unlocks a confidence in you. There's no imposter syndrome. It's like, oh no, I'm not the same person. I have leveled up and you got to find out. So it was the same way with like when she went against Tony Storm. That's what it was. It was, I never beat you before, but it's not the same. Same thing with Mercedes. Mercedes beat her twice. I beat you plenty of times. I beat you again. Well, you did it before, but I'm not the same stat. Same thing with Jamie Hayter. I beat you before. You beat me before, but I'm not the same stat. So I like that thread has kind of, and it's necessary to establish her as having leveled up going forward. So a great match between Jamie Hayter and Statlander. Like there were some moves here that were like, oh, you two don't know this isn't real. Oh, okay. All right. Just like dropping bombs after bombs. It was crazy. Really, really, really great match between those two. Stat kind of healing it up, it seems like, but everything was all good in the end. And nice. Next up, we have the final for the Continental Classic, which I did not know was going to be a match because what? But also when you see it, it's also like, huh. Okay. So we have Jon Moxley and Okada. So now that this is what we have, my pick changes, right? Because it has to. So I'm thinking, okay, Moxley, Okada. I could see this. I didn't think this would be a thing. Like, but we're not gonna put the title on Moxley. That didn't even make sense. So I guess Okada's gonna come out on top again, and maybe we get back to the Unified Championship, and then we can just go. That's where I went. Okay, cool. He's gonna retain. Keep that title. We keep the unified title because that makes sense. And then what we'll do here's how I booked it. Just in the time between those two matches and the final. I said, okay, well, so we're getting Okada, I guess. And go back to I left something out because it's up lay into it. The screwdriver finished with the Okada Takeshita match. Mox and Kyle Fletcher is giving Mox the business. All right. Can't put him away. Working on his ankle, couldn't put him away. He decides, you know what? Screw this. I'm gonna hit this motherfucker with a screwdriver. He goes to the turnbuckle, but he can't find a screwdriver. You know why he can't find a screwdriver? Because Okada took the screwdriver, used it, threw it under the ring. There was a very interesting point here that Renee made that Kyle Fletcher was so locked in on watching Mox matches, his most recent matches throughout the tournament. He was so locked in on preparing for his match that he didn't watch the Okada Takeshita match. So he didn't know that Okada had got the screwdriver and threw it under the ring. Small little details that make sense. So even if you didn't like the screwdriver finish in the first match, the fact that it came into play on the second match kind of makes it, okay, all right, I get it. Now, still don't know where that goes going forward because neither Okada, Takeshita, or Kyle Fletcher, I don't think anybody hardly from the Don Callis family was on TV Wednesday for Dynamite. But I'm pretty sure they'll be addressed maybe on Collision. Maybe that actually kind of seems to be the place for, especially for Kyle Fletcher. So maybe it gets addressed then. But that's the thing. So the way that I booked this was, okay, well, then Okada beats Mox, of course, keeps the unified title. And actually what I said before was Takeshita would win the whole thing, and then that's how we would unify the titles again, eventually. Not what happened. But I figured, okay, Okada will win, we get unified title, and then we just go forward like that. Mox wins the Continental Classic and the Continental Championship. And I don't know what we're doing at all anymore. What does any of this mean? What? Huh? So now Moxley is the Continental Champion. Okada's still the International Champion. Apparently there's no more unified championship, at least for the time being. We have an international, a continental, and a national champion now. That why are we doing so much? Again, I'm not a stickler. I'm not big on like, oh, we gotta have, we have too many titles, but we kind of do. But we kind of do. Somebody mentioned to me between this night and Dynamite that, oh, I would love to see a women's C2. And they made a post about it. And I said, I would love to see it. But what I don't need is a women's continental title. I don't need it. I don't need a third women's single title. I don't. We got too many. I'm sorry, we do. I don't need as many men's single titles as we have. We could have stopped at 3. So if I were to streamline this myself, we would have the men's world title, the TNT title, the unified title. I think I would stop there. We didn't need the national. Because you still have all the ROH titles that sometimes will appear on AEW TV, which is way too much, but that's fine too. Because ROH has world title, pure title, TV title. I want to say there's like a fourth one maybe. Then there's then I left out the trio titles. And then there's the AEW, the ROH tag team titles and trio titles. Then on the women's side, now you have your world title, TBS title, and your tag team titles. I think that's enough. The men's having the unified, because that made sense, and I would have called it something else, but that's fine. The men's title being the unified title and a world title, and I thought, as they said, that the unified title was going to kind of be the 1B or 1A to the world title. I would have even put it, the collision, quote unquote, world title, if you want to call it that. I would have done that and kept the TBS title or the TNT title what it is as the secondary. Because unless you were doing a split, the national championship doesn't make sense. Because then you could have your national championship on one show and your TNT title on whatever shows on TNT and do it that way. Doesn't seem to be what they're doing. Anywho, but that's me. 2 minute silence. But the match was good. The match was really good. Moxley and Okada. Crowd seemed a little tired. That's kind of the downside to having these long events. However, a common thing with AEW is the crowd seeming very quiet, crowd seeming dead, lull, whatever. But if you talk to people who are there, they're like, no, that was live. And I know this because I have been to several where the energy is definitely in the building. Sometimes not as much as you would like, but the energy is definitely there in the building. But when you see it live on TV, it doesn't translate the same. Not sure why that is, but that is absolutely a thing. So could have been that. I think I've heard from people who were there who said that the atmosphere was definitely way liver than it came off on TV. So, but Mox wins, and then we're like, oh. And immediately when he wins, the Death Riders come out and they're kind of standing around, and there's like, and he's cutting his promo, and I'm like, oh, we're gonna do the thing. Are we gonna do the thing? This will make a lot of sense because when he did the thing before, they did the thing in Chicago. It's like it would make sense for them to like repeat that, to like his karma to be them doing the same thing to him the last time he was in Chicago, which made sense that he was going to lose. But I'm like, if you do it on a win, it's even crazier. But maybe they didn't do that. They didn't do that. And on Dynamite, Mox took on Josh Alexander in another really great match. Mox is out here cooking, man. I'm not gonna hold you. I'm not a fan of Mox Lesnar. This whole like, no selling. It's a little better now, especially through the C2. It's been a little better now. But so much of like, especially when he was world champion, of this like, I'm not selling. You can't hurt me. I'm just, what I could do without all of that. But the way it's kind of been working in the C2, and really since he's lost the title, has been a lot better. So did I have Mox winning the C2 at all? And no shape, form, or fashion. None. No clue. Had no. Shocked, to say the least. But that's what happens. That's what happens sometimes. Next up, we have our main event. MJF, Samoa Joe, Swerve Strickland, Hangman Adam Page for the World Championship. MJF comes away with the win. No surprise there, but a couple of things that I would like to talk about throughout the match. First of all, shout out to Swerve coming out in the green lantern gear. You all know I'm a sucker for gear, sucker for entrances. Swerve has not missed a single time. The fact that like he's what he is and represents what he represents, but then like he's very nerdy in the process. Because all his entrances, like so much of his thing was about being like the mogul, the rapper, the yada yada. But like it's actually very nerdy. All of his entrances nerdy. He did Static Shock, Predator. He just did Green Lantern. He's done like I can't even think of the other ones, but the entrance is always hit, and most of those were like just in this year, or it was 2025 rather. So Swerve nails it again. The Green Lantern one was great. Green Lantern is one of my favorite superheroes. The concept is literally probably my absolute favorite, but one of my favorite superheroes. Um, that match, so that entrance was crazy. MJF had a really dope entrance as well. Um, this match went exactly how you figured it would go. Swerve, Hangman working kind of not even begrudgingly, but like working together to eliminate people so they could fight each other, basically. Um, Anytime anybody was trying to intervene, they like stomp them out and uh, kind of get back to each other. MJF being like the little snaky heel, trying to sneak in and win whenever he could. And ultimately, that's what happened. Hangman sets up for a buckshot. MJF kicks him in the nads, hits Samoa Joe with the heat seeker. 1, 2, 3, and the devil has collected his due. So, I think it was the right move. Um, Poetic justice of sort, because not only did Joe end his reign, so he stole it back from Joe, basically. Also stole it from Hangman, who a lot of this was about to begin with. Following on Dynamite, I'm kind of catching Dynamite as I'm doing it because a lot of this stuff is just kind of the fallout from the show. MJF, of course, brings back the Triple B. This brings out Swerve and Hangman, basically staking their claim for the title and revenge. Samoa Joe, of course, also kind of staking his claim, but more so having a beef with Swerve and Hangman. I think they're going to kind of cancel each other out because guess who else? Guess who else is back in the picture? The Cleaner has returned to the main event scene. He has made his intentions known that he wants a shot at MJF in the world title. Don't think that will happen. The match will happen. I don't think he's actually going to beat MJF for it, but I would love to see. We never. It's interesting now because I don't know if we'll ever will get a babyface Kenny world title run. Kenny kind of feels like he's, um, truth be told, most of this AEW run, he's felt like he hasn't been the main character that people really thought and wanted him to be. Because it's kind of like once he got into America, like the injuries kind of started to really affect him, and he hasn't been quote unquote the man. The most we got was like I said, his heel championship run. Um, then he took some time off, and ever since he came back, he's done great. He still has great matches regularly. You know, amazing matches, 5-star matches regularly. But I don't know. But he hadn't been in the position of the guy, the champ. So, um, so that's something I don't know if we're actually going to see that or not. But um, looking forward to, and we have seen MJF and Omega. They had that match on Collision when Max was champion the first time. He was kind of in his babyface stint of it. Um, this will be different, and Max probably will still win. So that looks. I would imagine that's the match for Revolution. Is Max versus Kenny, and maybe we do a tag match with Swerve and Hangman versus, I don't know, because they're facing Hobbs and I think it's Hobbs and Hook on Dynamite next week, if I'm not mistaken. So what are we doing for Revolution? Because maybe if it were Hobbs and Shibata, I would have thought maybe Joe and Hook for Revolution versus Hangman and Swerve. Or maybe we're just doing Hangman and Hook for Revolution. Maybe Joe and Swerve as well in one-on-one matches. Maybe that's how we'll do that. I'm not really sure. So Revolution should be interesting. We'll see. They're back in LA, so we'll see how that goes. But that is World's End. MJF, once again, your world champion. John Moxley is your continental champion. Make that make sense. All in all, again, I think a really good show. Like I said, no Don Callis family on Dynamite this week. Maybe they will address whatever from on Collision tonight. Also, Wrestle Kingdom is tomorrow. Okay. Today is the 3rd. Tomorrow is the 4th here. So, what time? Because it's technically tomorrow. I'm trying to see what time does it actually start here. I'm not going to pretend like I'm not even going to pretend. I'm even going to pretend. So it'll be late tonight, early morning, which means it's probably just going to be late, like 2, 3, maybe 4 in the morning or something. And the reason this is important, and actually now that I think about it, they probably won't cover it on Dynamite because they won't be there. Now that I'm thinking about it. Because they will be at Wrestle Kingdom. It says late night, early Sunday morning, North American time. So I can run to their card real quick, and I don't have any New Japan context, but I will give you the card. Because again, so you have the reason they will not be on Dynamite tonight at all, because again, they're already in Japan. Okada will be taking on Tanahashi in his retirement match. That is going to be really big. I don't have a pick there. Probably should be Okada, but it may be Tanahashi. They may send him home happy, especially after what happened with John Cena. I don't know if that's going to affect them at all. They're probably going to send Tanahashi home, send the crowd home happy, send him off with a win against one of his biggest rivals. So that's big there. And then also we have Takeshita defending his IWGP championship against the global heavyweight champion in Yota Tsuji in a unification match. Now, it doesn't say unification, it says double championship, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be a unification match. If I'm not mistaken, the global championship took the place of the Intercontinental Championship. So it's kind of strange because there's a lot happening there with that. You have Evil versus Aaron Wolf for the Never Openweight Championship. El Desperado, Fujita, and Ishimori versus Sho to become the number 1 contender to the Junior Heavyweight Championship. You have Andrade El Idolo, Callum Newman, Great O'Khan, Hanare, and to be announced versus Dave Finlay, Gabe Kidd. Gabe Kidd's back in Japan already. Driller Maloney, Shingo Takagi, Hiromu Takahashi in a 10-man tag. The women's champions, Sayuri versus New Japan Strong Women's Champion. Oh, that okay. The IWGP Women's Champion, Shuri, versus the New Japan Strong Women's Champion, Saya Kamatani, and a double championship match. So I guess another unification. And of course, they're doing the Rambo. Again, I have seen the Rambo. And on the pre-show, we're doing El Phantasmo versus Chris Brook for the New Japan TV title. Pre-show is on Monday. 12:30 Central. Okay, so started the main card at 1 Central. So 1 in the morning. I will be asleep. I don't even have. I guess I could watch it on New Japan World, but I don't have New Japan World, so there's that. But that's Wrestle Kingdom tonight, so they won't address Takeshita and Okada and all of that until probably next week at best, maybe the week after, because again they have prior commitments. So go figure. But that leads us to Dynamite. Like I said, I've covered a lot of it, talking about the fallout from the main card. So we opened with the MJF segment. Of course, we talked about Omega coming out, Hangman coming out, Swerve, MJF, Joe and the Ops. Then we got the rematch. Of course, I mentioned that. The rematch to the Mixed Nuts Mayhem. Of course, the Death Riders won. We had Bandito, who is set for a match against MJF next week, taking on Beast Mortos. They went ham like they always do. We get Brody King versus Lee Johnson and a quick little squash. Just get Brody on TV. Of course, we had Mox and Josh Alexander. Mox gets the win, of course. After the match, you get Shelton and MVP coming out. So it looks like your boy Shelton got his eyes on that Continental Championship, and that's going to be a banger. But you know what I would have thought? I was like, I know it's Shelton because Bobby's hurt. Man, give me some Bobby versus Moxley. And let Bobby do about, like, I think Mox is better at this. The thing about Brock that you wanted, you kind of very rarely got. For Brock to be what he was, you always, when there were certain people, you like, oh, he's going to go up against him, he's going to get right. Bobby Lashley was actually one of them people that you thought, like, that match is going to go crazy because Bobby Lashley, Brock not going to be able to make Bobby Lashley look like he make other people look. When they had the match, he kind of did. But, because, whatever. I don't think Mox would do that. Like, if it was Mox and him, like, Mox would do Mox things. But he going to make Lashley look exactly how Lashley's supposed to look. He going to make Shelton look like Shelton's supposed to look. So if it was Lashley, it definitely would have been, go figure. So that happened. Out of the match they had on the pre-show where Jack Perry pinned Ricochet, we get a AEW National Championship match, which Ricochet won, of course, after the interference with the demand. After the match, they took out Luchasaurus. Apparently, Luchasaurus is hurt, so they took him out. So it looks like Jack Perry is going to kind of be running solo for the foreseeable future, which is cool. He needs some time to get back into that, especially in this somewhat new persona, the Jungle Jack. And it's funny because he was Jungle Boy for so long, and then he just became Jack Perry. Then he became like the scapegoat, and this feels like, and I remember even when he was Jungle Boy, they started kind of leaning into calling him Jungle Jack. And he was like, now it feels like Jungle Man. He makes knives. He's like Crocodile Dundee or some shit, So it just hits a little different. He comes back. It comes out the Tarzan boy, and all of that. So interesting to see what happens with Jack Perry going forward. We have so many championships, none for him to get, none for him to vie for. And if you don't have a tag team partner, you can't even go for tag titles. Can't go for trios. So interesting to see where he will land during this singles run. But I think it's a matter of reestablishing himself as a solo star, an up-and-coming person. Not the pillar that he was, but it's funny thing with the pillars. Only one of the pillars has been a world champion. All of them have held gold. Sammy might be the most decorated, actually, because he has several TNT title runs. Darby has a TNT or 2 title run. And he was a tag champion, even though they never defended it. They just kind of gave it up. Jungle Boy has a TNT title run and a tag team title run. MJF is the 2-time world champion and an international champion. Sammy's definitely the most decorated, though. I think Sammy's the most decorated in AEW now that I'm thinking about it. But MJF is one who's like still a star. Darby's still kind of ascending. So those four pillars took an interesting turn there. Took an interesting turn. Interesting turn. I'm blubbering. So then we get to what was the main event, and the reason that this was the main event, not even the reason, the fact that this was the main event, kind of made me say, hey, if I didn't know any better. So let me set the stage. I have been saying for months, since at least All In, maybe even before. I thought it would start at All In. Then it didn't, and I thought it would start like I thought it would start with All In, and it didn't. I figured it would start after she lost the stat, and it has. And my thing was always she will start to lose these titles one by one. And then it will come down to her having the one title that she clings on to for dear life. Now, I mentioned before, a couple of these titles like doubled up, and then there's the Owen Hart title that she can't technically lose. So that kind of makes it kind of not really what it seemed like it is. But like I said, by the time Double or Nothing comes, though, she has to essentially relinquish that title, or not necessarily carry it around because it'll be time for somebody else. I could see her going for it again and then losing, and in that way, losing the title. However, I always say it, the TBS title would be the last domino to fall, and that she will not win the world title until she loses the TBS title and all the other ones. She has lost, like I said, and I don't even know. I said it was like 2 or 3. It may have been a few more. She lost to Windsor. She lost to Red Velvet. I want to say there's another one that she lost on the Indies, perhaps, but I can't remember which one it was. I could be wrong, but I think it was. And so here in the main event, we've done this before, where the slide starts and she takes a match, wins the match, and it's like, okay, it's not, we're extending it a little further. So in the main event of Dynamite, on New Year's Eve, the main event is Mercedes Moné versus Willow Nightingale for the TBS Championship. And as the match was starting, I'm like, I don't predict Willow to win, but everything about this feels like a Willow win tonight. But I don't think that's going to happen because it's not time for her to lose the TBS title yet. So what are we going to do? Well, you know what we're going to do? We're going to put the belt on Willow. Willow pins Mercedes Moné for the TBS Championship to end 2025 in AEW. And that was crazy. Crazy. But I love it. I do. Willow absolutely deserved it. And I did always kind of say, I think Willow could be the one to beat her for the TBS Championship. It makes sense. And they already had the story. So the story there was the whole New Japan Strong thing where she got injured and Willow beat her because she had put she put Willow over as New Japan Strong Women's Champion. Willow ended up losing it. When Willow was the TBS champion, it was Mercedes who started. Mercedes' reign started with Willow because she beat Willow for the title, got her win back basically. And now Willow once again takes the lead in their series and regains her TBS championship. Poetic, actually. Seems a little random because it's almost like we could have built to that, and I don't particularly like that it's happening while she's the tag team champion. But listen, some things happen here that are kind of dope because this makes Willow the first ever 2-time TBS championship and the first woman in AEW to hold 2 titles at the same time. The first double champion to hold 2 AEW titles because again, Mercedes has so many, but she only has one AEW title. So it's the first AEW woman to hold two AEW titles in AEW. That doesn't mean that much in the grander scheme, since everybody seems to be running around with two belts in a lot of different places. But good look for Willow. Happy to see it. After the match, Conglomeration comes down, Harley comes down, and then we get Stat in the ring. And we end 2025 with the reconciliation of Stat and Willow holding up all their titles. Stat, Willow, and Harley holding up all the women's gold, except all of it. All the women's gold exists in Stat, Willow, and Harley. That is wild. I absolutely love to see it. Hell of a way to close out 2025. Hell of a main event. They have great chemistry. Willow and Mercedes have great chemistry. One minor thing. I know we're not going to leave this in 2025 because it's just a wrestling trope now. And I would say it's an AEW, but WWE is not that great. They do it as well. Not to the degree, I don't think, but I'm not a super stickler for the rules. I'm not a super stickler for, no, it's supposed to be this way. You got to do this, and they don't do this, and it's ruining wrestling. I'm not huge on that. I don't, whatever. But I will say, I really don't like the way we treat countouts. In particular, the count. Like, they'll be out of the ring for a good 20, 30 seconds. And the ref will like kind of count, start to count, then maybe stop, get out of the ring. They're down on the floor with them, trying to argue, get them back in the ring. Listen, none of that is necessary. One piece of thing I need. Just break the count. Just roll back in, roll back out, break the count. That's it. That's all you got to do. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, depending on where they are. Take away from the flow of things. I get it. But it's minor. Some people count slow. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with a slow count. I'm fine with a very slow counter whose 10 count takes 30 seconds. Fine with that. But when we're out there that long and just kind of, we're just out here now, and the ref's kind of counting, not counting, and then he stops counting. And that happened in the main event. Annoyed me to no end. It's just an annoyance. It's not a big deal. It's just an annoyance. But grinds my gears. But that's what happened. That's how we're bringing in the new year. That's how we ended 2025 with World's End Dynamite. New TBS champion Willow Nightingale. New Continental champion in Jon Moxley. New world champion in MVP. 2026 looks very interesting already. Over in WWE, I'll cover real quick because SmackDown was on last night. I didn't watch, but I can tell you, we got Trick Williams on main roster. We got apparently Jordan Grace. Still hadn't seen that thing, but they said Jordan Grace was there. And Matt Cardona, not Zack Ryder, Matt Cardona is now in WWE officially. I mean, hey, new theme and all. No old radio, though. I think I wouldn't mind. But if you're going completely new with Matt Cardona, not Zack Ryder, I completely understand. Also, kind of strange that he appeared as Zack Ryder in the John Cena tournament like a month or two ago. Appears as Matt Cardona a couple weeks later. In WWE world, that in Vince's world, that would never have happened, I don't believe. But maybe. Let's see. And also, the rumor, so we're talking AEW, I'll just cover this real quick. The rumor is that Jericho is WWE bound in 2026. I can more and more see that being a thing, and that's fine. And the rumor is that they're going to try to keep the presentation that he's had here for the last 5-6 years or so, or longer, really, with Judas and the look and all of that, instead of going back to Y2J era. Because it's funny because we'll roll out all these old legends in their old presentation, but for some reason with Jericho, we're gonna try to do something new for WWE. And listen, I'm not gonna hold you. Here's the thing: Jericho's good with reinvention, right? He may not even, if he goes to WWE, he may not even want to do the same thing. He wasn't coming after Judas anymore. Anyway, so I mean, putting Judas over in a WWE crowd, I mean, I guess it could be fine. Because Judas kind of played out for AEW years ago, to be honest, for a lot of people. But a WWE crowd is a very complete, especially now, very different crowd. So maybe it'll go over differently. It's a much more sing along song, and I don't know. But I also believe that Jericho still has his finger on reinvention and can come up with maybe some hybrid of, you know, and it won't be as cringe as a lot of his stuff tends to be in AEW, or tended to be in AEW. For a lot of people, I understand. I wasn't like a big Jericho hater, but I understand people who were. So maybe it'll be a little different. But all that being said, let's get out of here, man. It's 2026. We're getting out of here. I told you I had making good time. Making good time. Hopefully my mic hadn't died and you can still hear me good. If not, we'll address it next week. Still growing. We're still growing. Again, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Make sure you hit that, leave a comment. Again, tell me about your New Year's Eve. How'd your New Year's Eve go? Tell me what you thought about World's End. Tell me what you thought about Dynamite. Willow was champion. Mox winning the C2. Did you see that coming? I'm sure you didn't. Did you see that coming? Tell me in the comments. I want to hear about it in the comments. If you're watching on YouTube, tell me in the comments. Make sure that you subscribe to Black Phoenix Brand on YouTube. Again, we're trying to get our subscribers up to 125 by the end of 2026. So hit that subscribe on YouTube. If you're watching on Substack, make sure you hit it there. We're trying to get up to 50 subscribers here on Substack. So I need 30. Are you going to be one? So you make sure you hit that up. If you're listening on Spotify, make sure you leave a rating. Make sure you leave a review. I think you can do that on Spotify. Make sure you leave something. Engage is the key. Make sure you engage. And all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get out your head. Thank you for tuning in to Talmbout Wrestling right here on the Black Phoenix Network. I'm your host, the untouchable J.R. Atkins, and this is your primary destination for wrestling conversation. And with all that being said, until next time, we are out.